Okay, good evening, everybody. It's nice to be with you. And thank you for Professor William and Professor Victor. Brilliant insight to the topic. I was worried at the end that I may not have anything to add because they were doing so great work. Now, we heard that the term genocide, and I think it's a hugely misused term in international domain. I mean, we heard the word weaponization, and I would add like it is politicization and weaponization of the term genocide. And Sri Lanka is suffering from this term or the accusation like China. And of course, it has an emotive nature because when you say genocide, it gives a bit of a bad feeling like Holocaust. I mean, it's millions of people killed. I mean, I think the Professor William mentioned about one person getting killed and accusing as genocide, but it has a very emotive. So the victim or the suppressor or the aggressor in the beginning, and then once he is defeated, this is one weapon he used. Oh, we were genocide. There is genocide by the government forces, and we were the victim. It's very easy to say that. So it is very emotive and it has a very politically sensitive terminology. So this is something I think we need to understand, and we need to understand that the Western countries are capitalizing on this sensitive political emotive nature of the term genocide. Now, if it is real genocide, it has to have, I mean, real, sincerely political, legal implication. But we all know, if you look at the history of cases against genocide, only very few we have in the world, right? Now, therefore, when you, I mean, the Professor William also mentioned the intent. Now, again, I would like to add, because the unspecified nature or the difficulty in identifying the intent again is used to accuse countries of genocide, because you can easily say you have committed genocide. You don't have to prove anything. You don't have to, I mean, the accuser doesn't have to prove anything. Simply say you have carried out genocide. I mean, as Professor said, we have to have two components: genocide, that is the intent, and the physical thing. Now, this is, therefore, it is a factually very legal complex issue. The genocide is a very complex legal issue. Now, therefore, we need very detailed and careful study about the term applicability. How does it set in the international system? Who is using the term genocide against whom? Now, when you dig in the past, there are many cases we can unsurface, right? And there would have been cases of genocide, but nothing really happened. Now, again, the genocide, the real sense is giving state responsibility and at times individual responsibility. Now, this is again, we call it the command intent or the commander's intention according to the international humanitarian law. This is again difficult to prove. So this is also giving an advantage to the accuser. Oh, it is easy to say you are responsible, your state is responsible of carrying out genocide. Now we need to, I think, everybody will agree, we need a competent international court to say a crime of genocide has happened or not. If that has not happened, please stop using the term genocide. This is what I want to really say. Now, in that sense, it has to be a competent court internationally, or it has to be a competent court domestically, or it has to be an international penal tribunal. Now, the Professor William mentioned that he was part of it. Without that, no one should be able to say this is genocide, right? Even the, I mean, when you look at the United Nations Human Rights Council, well, they can appoint independent commission, I mean, the rapporteurs, but they cannot determine a case of genocide has actually happened. So this is, I think, very important, that who can declare that there is a case of genocide. Now, again, coming back to the mental element, that is the intent. How do you really define the intent? How do you really define the intent of during a terrorist case, right? Low intensity or right, violent armed conflict. How do you really define? What is the intent of the leader of that country? Now, the leader of that country is expected to protect its people. Now, people throw human rights at you, but people forget the right to life. Right now, in the case of China, I believe in the case of Sri Lanka, what the government has done is have actually given the right to life to the people. To enjoy human rights, you first should live. right? Now, in the case of Sri Lanka, we have suffered about 100,000 deaths from all sides. And that's lives lost in this country. So, ladies, Professor mentioned the five cases of the five cases of the genocide, five crimes of genocide. Here again, it is again used as a weapon because killing the members of a group. What is the number? Is it one genocide, 100,000 or 1 million? What is the number that you can talk for genocide? So I will not go into that detail because the Professor William already spoke about it. But we know that there are basically four groups that the Genocide Act bill is protecting: the national group, ethnical group, racial group, and religious group. Even this one in this contemporary world is very difficult to define because these are quite mixed. Take the case of Sri Lanka. It is very difficult to say you belong to this ethnicity, you belong to this religion, because we have so much of intermarriages. People are living in harmony. People are living in a multicultural, multi-ethnic society. So how do you really identify? Very briefly, I'll give you an example. Now, the Tamils in Sri Lanka was fighting for a separate state in north and the east. But more Tamils are living outside these two areas than their own claim area. So this is the predicament of that. Now, very briefly, with my experience as a practitioner of 36 years of going through a very difficult conflict, and also with my limited exposure to Xinjiang province, let me quickly compare the two in the final way. Both, we had separatist group demanding a separate state, whether it is in Xinjiang, whether it is in Sri Lanka. And they use indiscriminate use of extreme violence. They didn't care who will get killed. They wanted the political ideology. And then there was a complete breakdown of law and order. And then both the groups enjoyed financial, psychological, and material support from other countries, not only the own people, other countries. And they have terrorized the region, they disturbed civilian life, and they targeted unmanned, innocent civilians. Now, the government had to protect the lives of people. As I mentioned, right to life is more important for a government than protecting human rights, because you have to have people living first. Now, government had to stop terrorism, whether it is Xinjiang or Sri Lanka. Government had no choice but to stop terrorism. They tried different ways. I don't know exactly the process taken place in Xinjiang through peace negotiation, ceasefire, but in Sri Lankan case, I know there were a large number of ceasefire, peace agreement, but nothing worked. Every time we had an agreement, the terrorist group became stronger, more violent, and it resulted in more death. Terrorism was used as a weapon to achieve the political agendas of both the separatist group. The government had no choice but to use military force to suppress terrorism. Now, it was not only the military force, but a combination of law enforcement, combination of social work, and also vocational training. These are, again, two similar things between Xinjiang and Sri Lanka. Now, having implemented these issues, what do we have? We have improved situation in the local area. The security is assured. Income has risen. Unemployment dropped. Violence eradicated. So what is the problem? What is the problem? Why do you keep accusing us of genocide? There was no genocide, and now we have real peace. We have stability, right? And also the development and the economic empowerment is taking place. So therefore, ladies and gentlemen, I would say the West is really misusing the term of genocide, and because that is a very easy thing to do, because it is not 100% defined. It is a very, I call it a loose word, in the sense, because how do you really define various aspects of genocide? But they are using this against countries when it suits them, because human right is another weapon they use, and the genocide is a very strong tool to condemn countries, point fingers at countries, right? You don't have to have a case. As Professor William said, if there is a case, they will lose. But then you keep accusing. There is a saying, if a lie is told 1,000 times, people begin to believe, oh, that's true. And in the new age of social media, a lie is told. Once a lie is told, it takes a lot of efforts to prove that it is a lie, right? So these are all coming from my practitioner point of view. I'm not a law professor by any means, and I am here among the expert, right? Now, by accusing the governments who actually control terrorism in genocide, you are basically glorifying terrorism. You are glorifying violence. You are inciting violence. It gives a very wrong message. You use terrorism, and after 10 years, you are the good guy. The government who fought terrorism is the bad guy. So this is what is happening. So therefore, I think we really need to be discussing about it. We need to be sharing our thoughts about it. You know, even we are accused of mass killing. I mean, I mentioned only 100,000 people killed in 30 years, right? So that's not mass killing by any means. Yeah. So then, then there is no concentration camp. We never had, and I don't believe China you have it as well. But then it is easy to say, oh, you have concentration camp. You are eliminating a minority. These are easy things to say. But then another thing is the United Nations Human Rights Council is used, abused, and misused by these powers to accuse the countries that they don't like, the countries that which does not bow down to them. So this is another thing. So as I said, by doing this, finally, what these Western powers are doing is glorifying terrorism, glorifying violence, because they are condemning the governments which were compelled to fight because of the mandate given by the people to the government in order to protect the citizenry. So this is my final word is this is real double standards and this is real hypocrisy at its best. So we need to discuss this in every forum, and we need to throw this case back at the accuser. Thank you.